Let's start with something that happened last week regarding an invocation in Congress. Okay, so on Friday of last week, when the U.S. House of Representatives began its workday, they had a guest invocation. And should they have an invocation at all? The answer is no. But they do. And members of Congress can invite people, usually from their districts, to do the honors. It's just one of those nice things you can do. Usually those invocation speakers are Christian. But last Friday, a New Jersey Republican congressperson invited a Sikh leader to do the job. His name, and I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, is Yanely Surinder Singh, and he heads up a Gurdwara, like basically a Sikh temple in South Jersey, in Vinland, New Jersey. So I won't play the whole clip for you. It's about 3 minutes long. But if you listen to his remarks, they are basically in line with what most guest chaplains say when they have this kind of opportunity. Singh asked for the universal creator God to keep his divine hand over this house. He asked members to use sound judgment and to love and to create a more peaceful world. Fine, whatever. Do I love the God talk? I do not. But as far as invocations go, that one's fine. It's totally fine. And actually, I wanted to show you this because I don't know how often you get to see this. The Republican who sponsored him actually said some really decent stuff. Check this out. Jeff Van Drew is the Republican who invited him. Van Drew told the New Jersey Globe that he stood behind Singh and that he was glad that Miller took the post down. I'll talk about that in a second. But look at this. As a Catholic, I take my faith seriously, and I also believe part of being American is respecting other people's faiths too. ... What makes America special is that we can honor these different traditions while staying true to our own. I will always stand for that kind of mutual respect. So look at that, a Republican saying something sensible. You don't see that very often, but good for him. And that should have been the end of this. Like, the guy gave his 3-minute invocation, and then that was that. I should say that this Republican asking this Sikh leader to give the invocation, it's not even the first time that has happened. In 2023, a Democrat representative, Donald Norcross, invited a different Sikh leader to give the invocation in the House. So cool. It's kind of radical that this was not the first time that has happened. But here's why this is a story. Because Singh is not Christian, you knew some Republicans were going to freak out about this. And that is exactly what happened, because Illinois Republican Mary Miller, she tweeted about the invocation. And let me just show you what she said, because, of course, it's very disturbing. By the way, Mary Miller, if you don't know, she is one of the dumber, more racist Republicans in a party that is very full of very dumb, very racist people. And so she wanted to criticize what that invocation was. She wanted to criticize the invocation, but she couldn't even do it right. This is what she ended up tweeting. It is deeply disturbing that a Muslim was allowed to lead prayer in the House of Representatives this morning. He's not a Muslim. We'll get back to that. This should have never been allowed to happen. Why? Why could it not have happened? What is she mad about? America was founded as a Christian nation. It was not. And I believe our government should reflect that truth, not drift further away, whatever. So let me decipher what she did here. She sees the Sikh man giving the invocation. She sees a turban on his head. She notices that this man is not white. And immediately she thinks Muslim. And as soon as she thinks Muslim, she thinks evil. Why? Because she's racist. So she just gets the overall premise of the argument completely wrong, and then says we shouldn't allow, non-Christians to deliver invocations in Congress, basically? So that is what she posted. Yikes. And then very quickly, after people like ratioed her and they were like, the hell are you doing? That man is not Muslim. Even if he was, who the hell cares? She quickly deleted that post. Now, here's the thing. Why is she mad about this guy speaking? I have no idea. She shouldn't be. I don't believe Congress should have invocations at all. But if they do, they sure as hell better try to be as inclusive as possible, getting people of all religious backgrounds to do the honor. Several years ago, in case you're wondering, an atheist, Dan Barker, who's the co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, he happens to be an ordained minister in his past life. And he got a congressperson from Wisconsin to sponsor him to give an invocation. So he met all the requirements, and the chaplain of the U.S. House said, yeah, we're going to say no to you because invocations have to be religious. And then the Freedom from Religion Foundation sued over it. I think that was 2016. And in 2019, that lawsuit was eventually dismissed. Congress gets to do whatever Congress wants to do. So they don't allow atheists to give the invocations in Congress, but they do allow different religious people to give invocations. And the last time I talked about this, I think, back in January of this year, Speaker Mike Johnson invited this really radical, extreme Christian zealot named Jack Hibbs, who is very anti-gay, very Christian nationalist. He invited that guy to do the invocation. And that was genuinely offensive because Hibbs is a horrible dude. But all that's to say, if you're going to have invocations, yes, they should be open to different faiths. And kudos to the Republican congressperson from New Jersey for inviting a Sikh leader to do this time around. But again, like I said, he's not Muslim, he's just brown. And Mary Miller, by the way, if you're not familiar with her, she is famous for like two things in Congress, because otherwise she's just like a Marjorie Taylor Greene wannabe. She's just whatever Trump wants, I'm going to say yes to. Illinois is a blue state. It's heavily gerrymandered in the Democrats' favor. And there's only like 3 seats that Republicans could win, and they do win. And she's one of them from like a really rural part of Illinois. So what is she known for? Well, I think this was on January 6th of all time. She famously gave a speech that morning where, I'm sorry, maybe it was January 5th, but she said at a rally, Hitler was right on one thing. That's it. She's the congresswoman who wants to praise Hitler for at least one thing. That's what she's known for. The other thing she is known for is that after Roe v. Wade was overturned, she gave a speech, and she's not good at the talking, where she said it's a historic victory for white life. To which her staff is like, oh no, you weren't supposed to say that out loud. Quick, how do we spin this? And they were like, you guys, she just flubbed. She was trying to say a historic victory for life, or maybe for whatever, and she couldn't get the words out. So she said historic victory for life. That's how they tried to spin this thing. But she said white life because she's racist. That's why she's standing in front of Trump there. So that's Mary Miller for you. And she's the one that said this thing about Muslims. She doesn't seem to understand that Islam and Sikhism are 2 entirely different religions. She doesn't understand how, even if you don't like a particular religion, it's possible that extremists have basically hijacked a faith and turned it into a motivation for doing evil things. And she didn't even bother fact-checking that tweet. She just tweeted it out because she's dumb and racist. But like I said, she tweeted this thing. Again, here it is. This is what she tweeted. And then after everyone complained, including a lot of Republicans, she took down that tweet, like I said, and she tweeted something else. This is what she replaced it with. It's deeply troubling that a Sikh was allowed to lead prayer in the House of Representatives this morning. This should have never been allowed to happen. It's the same tweet. She just replaced the wrong religion with the correct one. And because there's no nuance, in anything she is saying, whoops, let's try that again. Because there's no nuance in anything she's saying, she just continued the hate speech because she's like, oh, wrong type of brown? Aha, I'll fix that and then say the rest of the stupid stuff. So that's Mary Miller for you. That's what she did. And again, obviously, this is not any better just because you got the Sikh part right. Because the substance of this saying that there's a problem if a Sikh person delivers this invocation, that this should not have been allowed to happen, that's the actual problem with what she's saying. And she didn't correct any of that. And of course, she didn't correct the Christian nation bit. So as soon as she did that, now it's just funny because now she's racist and dumb and she doesn't even know what she said. That's wrong, apparently. So if there's any consolation here, it's that she deleted that second tweet. And this time, even some Republicans are like, dude, what are you doing? This is what one Republican said. I'm troubled by my colleagues' remarks about this morning's Sikh prayer, which have since been deleted. Throughout the country and in the Central Valley, Sikh Americans are valued and respected members of our communities, yet they continue to face harassment and discrimination. Good tweet, fine, but also he's troubled by it. But that's like Susan Collins' level of concern. Like that's the most he's ever going to say about this. He's not going to do anything about it. There was also this weird tweet from New York Congressman Nick LaLota, because look what he says. While our nation's founding was indeed shaped by Judeo-Christian values, that's bullshit, he's lying. The First Amendment unequivocally guarantees that our government remains neutral toward all religions. Good. And then what does he say? A Sikh prayer on the House floor, followed by a Christian prayer one week and a Jewish prayer the next, doesn't violate the Constitution. Good. Offend my Catholic faith. Good. Or throttle my support for Israel. Okay, no one asked and no one cares, but all right. Weird, but okay. I also, there were some better remarks from Democrats on this because at least they rarely, but this time they saw the opening. Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, said it's deeply troubling that such an ignorant and hateful extremist is serving in the U.S. Congress. Nice. Eric Swalwell of California was more blunt. They're not just mean, they are fucking morons. That's Eric Swalwell. And the humanist representative, Jared Huffman, he said, I often say that I serve in Congress with some of the greatest minds of the 18th century. With Representative Miller, I may need to take it back a few more centuries. Well played. So Mary Miller has still not apologized for all the bigotry. Of course, she's not going to. I did want to tell you, I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember this. In 2007, this sort of thing happened before. Because in the US Senate, a Hindu man, his name is Rajan Zed, he was invited to give an invocation in the Senate. And when he did that, and again, brown Hindu guy giving this invocation, there were some people who were so mad about it that in the chambers of the Senate, like in the viewing areas, some random people decided to show up. And this is an article from NBC News about when this happened. July 2007. As he stood at the chamber's podium in a bright orange and burgundy robe, two women and a man began shouting, "This is an abomination," and other complaints from the gallery. Police officers quickly arrested them and charged them, disrupting Congress, a misdemeanor. The male protester told an Associated Press reporter, "We are Christians and patriots," before police handcuffed them and led them away, which is the right thing to do in that instance. But also, we are Christians and patriots. What does that have to do with anything? So is the dude who is at the podium talking. But you don't seem to care about that. Like it's the Constitution doesn't just apply when it's your religion, right? Right. What else do we need to say about this? What did the crazy online Christians say? You might be wondering. Well, check this out. This is Greg Locke, the extremist from Tennessee, who says a Sikh chanting to a demon is not freedom of religion. It's Satanism and does not belong in a nation founded on Christianity. I think this one wins an award for how many wrong things he got in such a short amount of time. No, Sikhism is not Satanism. He was not chanting. He's just a brown guy talking. Sorry. He was not chanting to a demon. He was basically telling all the members of Congress to, like, be nice. It's not Satanism. And it does belong in a nation because our nation was not founded on Christianity. One of the things it was founded on is religious freedom, which Locke doesn't understand because he's a right-wing zealot. Here's another guy, Dale Partridge. He's an extremist as well. And he's like, oh, what? We're all being racist here? Sure, I'll join the club. Hinduism is demon worship. That's nice. That has nothing to do with the picture you're showing, the video you're playing there, because that man is Sikh, as we have discussed. But no, Hinduism is not demon worship. But this guy just thinks anyone who is not Christian worships demons, which he probably thinks atheists worship demons too, which makes no sense. And then he says it is loving to outlaw demon worship, which I think implies he wants to outlaw Hinduism and just make it a crime, because that's what those Christians want to do with their lives. So yeah, Mary Miller brought out the bigots. Congrats to her, I guess. I guess I'll just end this with one thing. In my neck of the woods, let me see if I can pull this up here. I live outside of Chicago, and I live near a county, DuPage County. And a few years ago, they have invocations as well. And there was some controversy because some people on that county board wanted to get rid of the invocation altogether. And some of them wanted to keep it. And then there's a question of, well, how do we make sure we are trying to be as inclusive as possible so we don't just have Christians doing this all the time? And to their credit, a few of those board members said, okay, well, we'll create some procedures to try to make things more inclusive. And at the time, they actually reached out to me and said, would you consider giving a non-religious invocation? And I did. And I think my presence itself was semi-controversial just because I'm an atheist. So it made some local news coverage. But then guess what? A year later, they asked me to do it again, and I did. And it made no headlines, which is great because it was not an issue. I just said a secular invocation and I left. Well, about a month ago, the same board reached out and said, hey, can you give us another invocation? We just want to mix it up a bit, right? And so this week on Tuesday, I ended up giving the invocation again. And the video's online somewhere, but I will just tell you that up front, this is what I said, because I had this Mary Miller story in my head. I always appreciate how this board is willing to listen to people who may not fit a traditional mold, because it shouldn't make a difference if an invocation is given by someone who's Muslim or Sikh or an atheist like myself. Wisdom can come from all sorts of people, and we're all better off when we can acknowledge and respect that. I have no idea if anyone caught the reference, because I just left after I said the rest of the invocation, which had nothing to do with politics. But I don't know. I hope people understood. Anyway, I will leave it there. What other questions we got before I move on to a different story? Oh, thank you, Carla. Happy Pride Month. I agree. Love to all. That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Imagine wanting to be like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And it's like Timu Marjorie Taylor Greene either. Like Mary Miller isn't good at being ignorant. She's just dumb. And so she really wants to get the attention Boebert gets and Marjorie Taylor Greene gets. But like she clearly cannot talk because she just trips over her own mouth all the time and says not just wrong things, but like weirdly disturbing wrong things. So, whatever. She'll keep being a congresswoman until the South of Illinois gets tired of her. We'll see. Oh, that's why J.B. Pritzker said today he wouldn't take instruction from a Hitler apologist. That's right. Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, was testifying in a House subcommittee today, and Mary Miller got to ask him a question because she sits on that committee. And when she asked him some racist question about immigrants, Governor Pritzker's like, I don't have to take advice. I don't have to take lessons from someone who praises Hitler. And good for him. Go get her, JB. So for context, she represented rural Southern Illinois, and Southern Illinois is very, very white and has a white biker gang problem. I did not know about that. I will say the Sikh Coalition, basically a national group that deals with discrimination against Sikhs and calls out bigotry and stuff like that. They pointed out that hey, guess what? We are everywhere. You're not going to get rid of us or anything. And they said there are Sikh constituents of hers too, which would not surprise me. I imagine there's not that many of them, but interesting point. Is Emmett the only atheist they know? You mean at the county board? The answer is I have no idea, but I will tell you that a couple of board members came up to me just to say thank you for being willing to give the invocation. And, they're familiar with me. They know what I stand for, what I do, but they were just polite about it. Everyone else just kind of ignored me. But like 3 different members said very nice things to me. One even said, like, I don't want the invocation, but if we're going to do it, I'm glad people like you are coming here. So that was nice. Could any of you be friends with Christians or any religious people if they are not cultish? Assuming you are asking that in good faith, I think the obvious answer is yes, I am. Because for the most part, a lot of the friends I have, colleagues I have, we don't actually discuss religion. Religion and arguing about it is like my day job. And I write about it and I do this live stream. And then when I'm not here, I just kind of hang out with a few people sometimes. And religion doesn't come up because we talk about other stuff. And so we're not debating. I don't really care. Let's talk about your kids. Let's go hiking, whatever it is. I don't think that's weird because, listen, I don't like anybody else. I think everyone's wrong about plenty of things, and you just got to let some stuff slide. So, yeah, do I think they're wrong? Of course they are. But everyone I know is wrong about a whole bunch of things. I'm the only one who's right about everything, right? And I hate myself. So what the hell?